Well, greetings, fellow sailors. I would love to welcome you back to the third webinar from Navigare Yachting. As many of you know, we've been telling you a little bit about the status of the industry as coronavirus has us locked down at home. Some of you may actually be able to get out. We're hopefully worldwide reaching the hump or getting over the hump of coronavirus. So I'd love to tell you about most of the main charter locations, and then we're going to have some special guests to talk about how to get a boat loan. So anyway, with the U.S. beginning phase one of the reopening of the country, the Caribbean is pretty well locked down. The Bahamas had hoped to really open up early. They are well locked down. They were set to reopen May 1st, but now after 81 cases, they've really gone into a very strict lockdown in the Bahamas. So no date for the Bahamas. The BVI, they've done a great job. So far, they've only found 6 cases of coronavirus in the BVI. 3 have recovered. They ended their full lockdown. They've had several weeks of really a very tight, strict lockdown. Now everybody's at least able to go about normal essential business from 6 a.m. until 1 p.m. The good news is that boat yards are open, and by the end of this month, we hope to have the curfew lifted, and at that time, June 1st, BV Islanders who are not on island are welcome to come back home. There is a resolution in place that hasn't been voted on. It's neither been upheld or changed to allow for foreigners to start entering the BVI on September 1st. We assume at this time that the September 1st date is good, and we're really looking forward to that. So Europe is in the beginning process of reopening, and we hope to see borders starting to reopen in the next couple of weeks. France, May 11th is opening up. People are going back to work. Some people have already gone back to work, specifically at the boat factories. And Croatia was set to open May 18th. We expect this week they'll push that back maybe until later in May. They're working with their neighbor Slovakia, I believe, to open up to them, and then open up a little bit further by the end of the month. Greece just came out with a report yesterday that the Prime Minister is targeting an opening date of July 1st. We're hopeful that comes to fruition. Early season, they're expecting a lot of visitors by car and bus, and mainly car, hoping that the airlines will start picking up traffic as the summer goes on. So domestically, Rhode Island has had a fairly significant spike in COVID-19 cases, and they're looking at holding off the sailing season until the first few weeks of June. So all in all, it looks like we're looking at a late summer sailing season. So I'm dying to get back on the water. I was able to get out and kiteboard once, but I need to get sailing, and I'm sure many of you are feeling exactly the same way. So we're going to go on to the awesome part of the webinar now. And we've been getting a lot of questions as we, Navigare sells a lot of boats into our charter program. In certain parts of the world, we're actually a broker, and we do sell brokerage boats. So a lot of our owners and prospective owners are wondering about the loan process. It's not something they do all the time. They want to. They have questions. It's kind of a mystery. So, I'd like to take some of that mystery out today. And for us in the U.S., most owners will either pay cash or take out a loan for the boat. For charter boats, there are other options. For example, with Navigare, we have our SMART program, where you're allowed to put down a large deposit, depending on the type of the boat, and then you have no payments. At the end of the charter term, you'll own that boat outright, fully paid off. So that's a good option for some people. So we do have a lot of foreign viewers on the webinar. Welcome from everywhere in the world. You may want to check with our Swedish office to find out about specific offers that we have, or financing options that we have for the rest of the world. So we have a special guest today from Lending Associates. And Lending Associates is a finance broker specializing in boats and aircraft. Now, it turns out that their main office is just a few doors down from where I'm standing in our home office in St. Petersburg. They do have lots of offices that I think they'd like to tell you about. So first of all, I'd like to introduce Grant Smalling, the president of Lending Associates, and John Wiley, Northeast sales manager, and he handles all of the Navigare accounts and transactions. So they'll do a better job of introducing themselves than I will. So I'd like to turn it over to Grant. Grant, welcome.
Thank you, Phil. Appreciate that introduction, and welcome to everybody that is joining the call today. So like Phil said, we are a finance broker, and we specialize in yacht and aircraft financing, specifically tailored to our clients' requirements. And it's a very specific, tailored product to our clients. Like Phil said, we're located here in St. Pete. But we also have offices in Miami, New Orleans, the northeastern United States, Connecticut, Seattle, and Southern California. So we kind of cover all of the corners of the continental U.S. For all of the U.S. buyers. One thing that we do well is we maintain a vast lender network. We make sure that we can meet our clients' needs with multiple lenders, because one bank does not fit everybody, and it's our job to match the client with the right bank. And lastly, we are, like Phil, boat enthusiasts. So we practice what we preach, and we enjoy it just like our end users. So that's us at Lending Associates.
So I'm John Wiley. I handle most of the questions directly with the customers when they call in, and I'm here to help answer those questions for you and give you guys the idea of the questions that I hear all the time. The most common ones are, what are your rates, and are there any prepayment penalties? Our rates are very competitive. We have a very strong relationship with the banks. We've been doing this for over 20 years, and because of the volume that we have with them, they give us special programs. Regarding the prepayment penalties, most of the times there are not any prepayment penalties on boat loans. And then we'll have customers that will call in, and when they're calling in, we're trying to figure out, how are they using the boat? Are they using the boat? Is it recreational use? Is it charter use? We're trying to answer all those questions ahead of time to figure out which program to put them in, and how to set it up that it's the easiest for them. If we answer all the questions ahead of time for them, and present the package as well as we can to the bank, by the time the bank sees the deal, it's an approvable deal. Some of the other questions that the people ask, or that we'll ask the customers, are, what size and dollar amount of a boat are you considering? Are you considering the 40? Or are you considering the 46? We'll help let you know. You might be thinking that you only can buy the 40, but after looking at things, the 46 might make sense, or vice versa, in those questions. How much money you're looking to put down? Typical, it's 20% down that the banks are looking for. The nice thing about that is less money down. You can keep your money in play, keep your money invested, and make money on your money and use the low rates while they're still available. How are you planning to take ownership of the boat? Are you going to use it? Are you going to put it in a trust? Are you going to put it in an LLC? We handle all that for you. What most people do is they'll form an LLC, and it's a new LLC. They might call it Lagoon 40 Catitude. and the boat would be the sole asset in the LLC. I wanted to talk about the pre-approval process. So what will happen is I'll talk to the customer. I will send them an application and a personal financial statement for them to complete. They'll send that back with their last 2 years personal, and if they're self-employed, their business returns. When we get that in, we'll make sure that we have everything that we need to send it off to the bank. I've mentioned this before. We want to send a complete package off to the bank so the person, when the bank sees it, it's an approvable deal right away. You want to give the bank the best opinion of the deal the first time they see the deal. The other thing that's nice about the pre-approval process is we won't leave any open stipulations out there. When we have you approved, we won't say you're approved, but you still need these 5 things, and you're still worried about down the road, is that an approval or not? We'll have all the stipulations covered at that point of the approval. So you'd know that you're comfortable with putting down your down payment and moving forward with the boat.
Yeah, John, thanks so much. I appreciate that. We started off by talking about the status of the industry due to the coronavirus impact. Grant, can you tell us maybe a little bit about what's the status of lending given the impact of COVID-19?
You bet. It's a question that comes up quite a lot recently. And the interesting thing is that the banks are lending. In fact, they're quite busy. The rates are still good for the lenders. They're getting their money at a lower cost of funds right now, which means that they are also passing along some of the better rates to the consumers because they are borrowing at a lesser rate. However, as a lot of us are, the bankers are working from home as well, the majority of them. So that presents a few challenges. And a lot of the banks have pulled their underwriters from various divisions to help out temporarily with the SBA and the PPP lending to try to get those funds out to the businesses. So what that means is we are seeing approvals. They're just taking a little longer than they normally do. Typically, we see approvals within 48 hours from submission to the bank. So that time has been extended just a little bit because of short staffing, working from home, just a little bit of getting used to the technology. Typically, the bankers are in a centralized location. They're used to having all of the resources. So it's been just a little bit of a learning curve, but I got to say that they're doing quite a good job, better than I would have expected, honestly. So that's good. We really have, other than just slowing the processing time a little bit, we have not seen any real pullback in the requirements or what their credit criteria would be. So we feel really confident and good about that. That's a good question.
Oh, great. That's good news. And as far as activity, tell me what your feeling is about the amount of loans that the banks are processing. Is it way down?
Well, the interesting thing is because rates have been down, in general, we've seen some refinancing, which has increased the volume for the banks. Rates have been pretty low for quite some time, so not a lot of refinancing going on, but we've actually seen an increase in overall volume and traffic in applications versus the same, I guess, the first quarter in 2019. So if you compare 2019 quarter one to 2020 quarter one this year, we are actually increased in volume over last year. So it's interesting. Of course, a little bit of that has to do with some refinancing, but not more than 20-25% of our overall volume. So the boating community in general, as far as purchases and financing is concerned, has remained very strong.
That's a surprising answer. I'm glad to hear that. It kind of feels that way for us. I didn't know if it was abnormal for us or if the industry really was continuing to move. By the way, if you're listening and watching the webinar, welcome you to ask any questions you may have. We have the pros on board, and we'll be answering questions at the end of the presentation. So there's been a bit of an impact on 401ks and other potential liquid assets. Is it still a good time to move forward, or is it a time to be cautious? What are you feeling?
Well, we have seen sort of an interesting phenomenon where we have some new finance customers in the market, which in previous transactions have typically paid cash. So this typical cash borrower has decided that either they do not want to sell securities at a lower value, current value, to purchase a boat. So they typically are looking at considering financing versus liquidating securities now in hopes that in the short and longer term, they will recoup their gains, and later on, they can sell the securities as if they had planned to, and they can pay off the loan down the road. So we are seeing folks take our funds in the short term, 1 to 3 years, let's say, and go ahead and make the purchase now and get on with enjoying the lifestyle, and then later on coming back, selling the securities and paying off the loan. So it's been good for both the cash buyer and the typical financer.
Okay.
So I'm seeing the same thing. What Grant just said. My biggest competitor is cash. So people don't want to liquidate their assets. Money's cheap right now. Rates are on a charter boat are as low as 4.99. So use our money, and there's no prepayment penalty again. So if you decide in a couple of years that, you know what, you just want to stroke a check and, pay off the boat, you can do it at that point. But right now, why liquidate your assets when the market's lower and when you only have to put down 20%?
Yeah, so that's I'm surprised at the last couple of answers, but certainly in my position, very glad to hear it. So Lending Associates is not a bank. Why would somebody want to use a broker as opposed to going directly to a bank?
When you're trying to work with your local bank, you're just sort of working blind with it. We have all the experience. We have 20 years of doing this. We know the questions the banks are going to ask ahead of time. We know exactly what they're looking for. We streamline it for you. We will send you an email saying exactly what you need to send back for us to send a complete package to the bank. Otherwise, you're just trying to work with your bank that might do some of your business lending, and they just don't understand this product as well. Our banks really like how this portfolio performs, and we have a strong relationship with them. And we normally, by us sending them a complete deal, they prefer to deal with us also. They're not having this stuff sent in onesie, twosie, oh, I sent in your 17 tax returns, but I forgot the 18s. I forgot these pages. We will send in a complete package, and we'll have the quickest turnaround compared to someone trying to deal with it individually, if their bank would even consider it.
Okay, well, that's kind of the comments that I get from our owners that have gone through the process with you guys, and they like that you hold their hand all the way, explain the process, because it's not like a home loan specifically, can be significantly different. I think one of those differences may be the question about what are the minimum cash reserves other than the down payment that a prospective buyer and somebody seeking a loan should be aware of?
So I'll answer that question from an internal underwriting standpoint. Every applicant is very different, but from a macro answer, typically the banks are going to be looking for the down payment, 20, 25, 30%, whatever the program requires. And then they're going to be looking for about 12 months of personal liquidity to cover their total monthly debt service. And I know that sounds like finance speak, and I'll explain. So basically what they do is they add up all of your monthly payments, revolving credit card, car payments, home payments, whatever is out there, plus the payment on the boat. They multiply it by 12, and that number typically is what they're looking for in personal liquidity. Now, a lot of our clients are self-employed. They own businesses. They own multiple entities. So a lot of times they own the businesses 100%, and a lot of their liquidity is left in the business for distributions or taking out of the company at a later time. So if somebody has that scenario where they have the majority of liquidity in their business for cash reserves, that's something that we would want to discuss in the pre-approval process as to where the source of their down payment and reserves is going to come from. So that's one of those questions where I can give you the easy answer of down payment plus 12 months debt service. But again, each client is very individual. And as we go through that pre-approval process, we have those discussions on the best way to structure that.
Okay, so unless you're a very simple case, it's better off to speak to you and get some advice on that, the real answer to that question. And things like funds in a 401k can be counted as liquid assets, probably in some cases. So that's very good to know. We have been getting some questions. Love to get more questions in. And let me do Grant or John have anything to add before I start bringing up a couple of the questions that we've had come in?
You just mentioned quickly about comparing it to like a home mortgage. So on the home mortgage side, a lot of people have experience with it, and the experience can be pretty painful. 30-day approvals, unbelievable amount of fees. With us, the approval process is usually 48 hours, and the fees are minimal. It's $395 is the total fee that we have. You would have Coast Guard documentation about $595. Besides that, there's no other fees. There's no fluff fees. It's nothing like that. We try to make it as simple as possible.
That is a big difference. And just so you know, Navigare covers the documentation fees. We have boats all around the world. So we do have the ability to document boats or register boats in different parts of the world, depending on where they're based. So the first question we got is, and we've actually gotten this question several times, how do rates compare to standard home mortgage rates, and what are typical rates?
Grant, do you want to answer that, or you want me to answer that?
Sure, I can take that. So the interesting thing about boat lending and aircraft as well is there is no secondary market like your Fannie Mae and your Freddie Mac. All of the lenders actually keep these loans on their books. So there is no secondary market for the lenders to sell loans into, like Freddie Mac and Fannie Mae. So the rates are very different. If you want to kind of take a look at where rates trend in the marine industry, the best way to look at it is a 10-year treasury. The averages of boat loans is typically less than 10 years, although the amortization on the payment can be anywhere from 15 to 20 years. So the banks know that the loans typically don't go past 10, and so they price off of the 10-year treasury. So although a lot of times you'll see the prime rate go up or down, our rates are not specifically tied to that same index as home loans. So it's best always to check with us and see what the 10-year treasury is doing.
Okay, well that's a great way to explain it. I usually go the simple route. It's going to be a little bit more because homes typically stay in the same place. Boats and aircraft can travel quite a bit. Okay, so John, we heard you mention 4.99. Is that kind of where the rates are in general?
Yeah, we just checked on that this morning. So 4.99, that would be a 15-year term with 30% down. You'd be at 5.49 with 20% down. So you can make that decision if you want to put the additional 10% down. Most of the times, you'll see customers just put the 20% down. And like I said before, keep their money in play in the market and tie up as little as possible on the down payment.
Very good. Very good. So we've gotten a couple of questions about LLCs. One of the questions is from Jonathan regarding what are the advantages of this type of approach. And Jonathan, I'm going to throw this off a little bit, the LLC, because there's another question that's similar. That is a question for legal and tax advice. So I think myself and the panel would probably have very good ideas and understandings about what the benefit is of an LLC. However, I think for anybody's benefit, an LLC is a simple corporation, and most boats, most boats that are bought into an LLC are a single asset in that LLC. But there is the legal structure that provides some protection. The other question is about the financial aspect of an LLC. And the question specifically is, are gains, losses considered passive in an LLC? And the answer is maybe. Again, that is a question, and I've read just about every IRS case that's gone through the courts regarding boats in a charter fleet. And what I have found is there are no two people that are exactly alike. And it's really the personal circumstances that are going to determine whether or not it's a passive or could be active income that you could have offsets with depreciation, for example. So it really, yes, we have owners that are taking very, very healthy depreciation, taking advantage of that, but there's no blanket statement on whether it's passive or active. It really does depend on your unique situation. So I know that's a really vague answer, but it's it is really the safer answer. So also in an LLC, the third question we got was from Phil, and does the LLC impact your ability to claim the boat as a second home? And probably, but again, there was a white paper written by some maritime attorneys specifically about the boat charter industry, and they went through several points that are critical to make sure that you're setting your business up if you want to claim any tax planning use. And one of the top items was, where did you get your legal and tax advice from? And if your answer is from the guy that sold me the boat, that's probably a black mark. You're better off, no offense to auto injury attorneys, but you're much better off getting advice from any attorney than from anybody. Even though we follow the regulations, we read all the cases, it's just in your interest to get outside advice. We have a question about financing for a yacht in Europe. We're working on that right now, Robert, and such a good question. Yes, there are options for us to finance a boat in Europe. We can do it today, but there are some legal restrictions that make some very big hoops to jump through. So I'd love to talk to you specifically about those hoops. But yes, we can finance boats in Europe today, and we're working on much better terms. So the terms aren't quite as easy as financing a boat for the common charter destinations, such as Bahamas, Virgin Islands, close to the U.S. So we have a question. Let's see. What is the security when you buy into the SMART program? The security is, and how a SMART program is basically let's take an example of a Lagoon 46. That boat, you would put down 50% of the cost of the boat. And Navigare would take out a loan for the rest of the boat, and we would fund and pay the loan. So technically, the bank owns the boat until the end of the charter term, when the boat is completely paid off, and the owner is handed the keys to a fully paid off boat. But during the term of the charter, there is no debt owed by the owner. There's no mortgage, and consequently, there's no the title is in the bank's name and not in the buyer's name. There is a method for the owner to step in and take over financing if they desire. Also, methods to buy out early if after 3 years they decide they just have to go out and sail across the Pacific and sail to my favorite part of the world, the Tuamotu Archipelago. So let's see. We had a really, really good one, and it's a tough question. And Michael, thank you for your question, and you're welcome. We're happy to present this seminar. And the banks are still lending boats to. The question is, Michael's surprised that banks would be lending given the uncertainty of the charter income and the tourist industry at large for many months to come. How is that explained? And really, really good question, Michael. And the deepest part of the answer is, and I'll answer, and Grant and John are welcome to chime in on this, but we enter into a relationship with Navigare Yachting. We'll guarantee 7 years. The owner can pull the boat out anytime with 1 year's notice, but we're going to guarantee it for 7 years. So we're assuming that this is a long-term relationship, and so are the banks. The banks know that we have hurricanes, we have disruptions to business. It's a common event, but over the term of the charter, it's a very stable investment. The charter companies are strong. We're doing everything in our power to hold on to our cash. We've gone out. We've had lots of specials to raise significant amounts of charter revenue. Our charter revenue numbers are way up. We are very excited. We thought it was going to be pretty disastrous, but we are actually booking lots of charters. The very end, I'm going to tell you about a special we have running. So that's really, from our standpoint, it's a long-term relationship, and the banks understand the strength, the inherent strength of the charter companies. And frankly, we have to go through a pretty strong vetting process with the lenders in order to be able to be approved to get into their programs. And yeah, there's risk. The boat is a movable asset. It's in a foreign country, and so the banks have some risk, but they still are offering really what I consider very, very good rates. Grant, John, anything to add to that?
I would just say, back to what you said about the long play, the banks are looking at, say, that 7-year program that you just discussed. With the industry being resilient, I'll give you a great example. You know, everyone's concerned about the hurricanes that hit the BVIs and what it was going to do to the industry. I actually waited a year too long to go back down to the BVIs because I thought it was going to be, you know, the boating was going to be tough. There weren't going to be that many options. So I finally went back this March 11th through the 18th, and I hopped around the islands, and it's doing great. You know, there's the industry bounced back completely. It looks, in my opinion, I was there 6 months before the hurricanes that had hit, and I just went back, and they're doing fine. And the banks look at that and say they know, you know, the industry is resilient. And I think if you're talking about COVID and the question relating to that, I think it's going to really boom after this. Everyone's pent up. They want to get back out there. They want to get out boating. I think the cruise industry might get hurt, but if you're looking at chartering a boat, you're controlling your own, you know, what are you going to have, 6-8 people that you know, and you go into your own destinations. You know, I think it's really going to boom after things open back up. And the banks, I believe, see the same thing, because none of our banks are pulling back when it comes back to the charter program.
Yeah, and interesting, you had mentioned the cruise ship industry. We've actually gone out and we're preparing presentations for the cruise ship travel industry. They have absolutely nothing to sell. They're likely, even though the unrealistic expectations of the cruise lines is that they'll open up in this year, pretty unrealistic. So we've got something for them to sell right now. And it's actually going quite well. Phil asked another question: does financing include or exclude transportation costs if a boat is purchased on a coast and delivered to another? So for us specifically, the boats, for the most part, are manufactured in France, the largest boat building country in the world by far. And they're transported to our charter bases, either in Europe or Thailand, Sweden, Caribbean. So yes, the costs of transportation and other included costs are typically included in the loan. So. From David, can you speak to the current charter utilization cash flow scenario? Are charters down in the travel restriction? David, they're way down today. The bases are closed basically worldwide. Europe is opening up hopefully in the next 30 to 60 days. We're going to have to find a lot of boats to get everybody packed on once things open up in Europe. We expect the season to open up on time for the season in the Caribbean. So yes, with travel restrictions, charters themselves are down today, but so utilization today is down. Cash flow is okay as we're booking lots of future charters. A question from Rob. Can a trust get a loan? Would it be different from an LLC or a personal loan? I'll let you guys speak to that one.
I can field that one. There are a lot of different ways that accountants and attorneys advise our customers to own their boats. So I'll echo Phil on definitely check with your professional on that. However, I will say that we see trust ownership all of the time. It's just like an LLC in that the trustees typically are signing the agreement on behalf of the trust. And of course, there's still a personal guarantee for the repayment of the debt as well. But then there's another scenario where the attorney would prefer the trust to be the member of the LLC and the LLC own the boat. And that's fine too. Many moving parts. I probably give you too much information on that, but the bottom line is that typically we can handle just about any ownership structure that anybody wants to throw at us. But again, it's a very specific client requirement that is worth talking about on each individual transaction. It's a very good question.
Well, that is a great segue. We went way over time, but such good questions, I couldn't stop. How do we contact you? And John, you are our contact. So why don't you give us your phone number and email address?
Okay, my phone number is 860-966-0486. Again, that's 860-966-0486. And then the email is John, John, .Wiley, WILEY, at lending-associates.com.
Awesome. Hey, I want to finish by telling you about a special offer that we have beginning tomorrow. Some of you may have already heard about our gift cards. Basically, you buy a gift card. If you want to buy a gift card for $5,000, that gives you $10,000 worth of charter over the next year. So a great deal, actually unheard of. It's a very limited time. It runs until the 10th of May. So you've got a few days to take advantage of that. Spread the word. We're happy to get you out sailing. And really, we know that once somebody comes and sails with Navigare Yachting at any of our bases, they're coming back. We are going to be their go-to charter company. So again, you can email charter@navigare-yachting.com or dial our toll-free number 1-800-807-1562. We're going to have this for everybody here. We are going to have this recorded. We'll send it out to you. You'll be able to see it on our website by tomorrow, I assume, possibly today. So Grant, John, thank you so much. You guys are really leaders in the industry, and we're glad to have you helping our prospective buyers make the process much easier. So on behalf of all of the Navigare team, I'd like to thank you all for listening, and I look forward to seeing you on the next webinar. See you guys out sailing. Talk to you soon. Bye.
Take care.